So what we'll do, we do have some people who will be continuing to join as we get started, but I just wanted to give a quick introduction. My name is Kelsey Griffith. I am the Performance Enhancement and Rehab Specialist at the McKaylee Center for Sports Injury Prevention. We are an affiliate of Boston Children's Hospital Division of Sports Medicine. So here, during our quarantine time, we have jumped onto the Zoom webinar boat, and so tonight will be our first webinar. And so please bear with us. I have here my awesome, amazing, fabulous colleague, Sarah Carpenito, who will be co-hosting. She's here to kind of help field questions. So please feel free. You'll notice at the bottom of your screen, there is a question and answer box you can click on. You can also raise your hand, all of these fun little technology tricks with Zoom. So please feel free to jump in with questions using those two functions as they come to mind. What we'll do is we will go through the presentation, and then Sarah and I will switch over to the question and answer forum following. So hopefully you guys can hang tight with us. We'll answer as many questions as we can, and we will just get started. So I'm going to share my screen with you. So give me 1 second. All right, here we go. Awesome. So I do see some familiar names on our attendee list this evening, but for those who don't know me, Performance Enhancement and Rehab Specialist, long and complicated title. What that means is I am a mental skills coach. So I get to work with athletes of all ages from all sorts of sports on the mental part of the game. Right now, that game is quite different given the current circumstances we are in. So tonight's topic, while still speaking to our student athletes, is incredibly applicable to everyone. We're looking at how we can kind of ride the waves of COVID-19. We're dealing with a lot of ups and downs right now. And so my hope is that tonight you can walk away with some tips and tricks, things that you can do to help navigate the ups and downs of mood, motivation, and stress in particular. So there's our agenda. Again, unprecedented change we're experiencing right now. It's pretty incredible how quickly the world was turned upside down, and also pretty amazing at how quickly we were able to adapt to these circumstances. That said, it doesn't mean it's been easy. So again, the things we're experiencing are quite challenging, and we have totally flipped everything around. We've gone from in-person meetings, in-person trainings to handshakes gone, hugs gone, social connectedness quite dramatically different. And so again, it's learning to adapt and to modify to those circumstances so that we can stay motivated, but also recognize that it's not always going to be this constant drive, the things that we're used to, 100% go, go, go. So here we go. All right, the normal. Our student athletes are used to regimented, scheduled days. When I have athletes who come into me and we start adding tools and tricks to their toolbox, I often hear, I don't have time. I don't have time for one more thing. And then as they start to explain to me what their day looks like, I often believe them. We're looking at waking up anywhere between 6, 7 o'clock, and then usually returning home anywhere between 7 and 8 o'clock at night. That means there's still need for homework, there's still need for dinner, there's still need for showers and relaxing and resetting. So the normal is kind of this continuous movement, continuous action throughout the day. They're also used to separation of home, school, and sport. So these things happen in different settings, like actual different settings. They are at home, where home can be relaxation, sometimes stress when it comes to school. They have sport, which tends to be the escape. And they have school, which, as much as it can bring a number of different stressors, also is a place of social connectedness. Right now, home is serving as everything, which we'll get to in just a moment. Student athletes are also used to time and space to process, unwind, and unrest. If you think about it, we commute to places. That takes time. Students walk between classes. I have heard so many students who say, I miss the 4 minutes I had between my classes. They get to talk to their friends. They get to break down their sport, their game that happened the other day, the practice they have later that night, the social function that's happening that weekend. And so right now, that's quite different. I'm sure I threw this on there, calendars, right? I am sure for pretty much everyone on this webinar right now, it's a refrigerator trademark. And if I'm dating myself, which kind of makes me laugh, it's maybe a phone trademark, right? We have our calendars. We have to know where we're going so that we can keep tabs on all of the things that are happening during our days. And right now, all of our days are happening in the same place. So our calendar is looking incredibly different. So the now, student athletes are having to spend energy to try to plan and create a schedule that mimics some degree of normalcy. This takes a lot of energy, right? They're waking up in the morning. They're trying to find ways to keep themselves busy, to feel productive in a way that has kind of been socially and culturally defined. And that's hard. Again, takes a lot of energy. For those of you who are doing that, I'm sure you're feeling it. They are also trying to manage the fact that homeschool and sport are now all in one. They don't have sport to escape to, which is usually a really good thing for them. And while spending time with family is an incredible silver lining of this, that can also bring about stressors, right? So we're kind of feeling stuck in this bubble. And then additionally, they are just living in a world of far less movement. I talk to my athletes and they're like, I have never sat so much. And actually just a quick little plug, tomorrow, if you are around in the evening, one of our trainers, Dennis Borg, will be doing a quick Instagram live on just that, how to reduce some of the aches and pains we're feeling because of this lack of movement, because we're sitting so much more. I know my PTs would be very proud of me. I'm taking the time to do my stretches for my back, for my hip flexors, because I'm certainly finding myself sedentary in far more of my day than I would if I were at the office. So looking at these differences, what does it mean? Chances are we are experiencing ups and downs in mood. Sometimes we're happy, sometimes slaps us in the face, we're sad, we're angry, we're frustrated. We are feeling stressed in ways perhaps we haven't felt in quite some time, or just different kinds of stress, things that wouldn't normally affect us might, and that's a surprise. And then lack of motivation, right? Or hypermotivation. Some days you might wake up and be raring and ready to go. And other days, really without much warning, you might wake up and everything feels hard. The ups and downs are hard. When we have the ups, it feels really, really good. We're ready to go. We feel like, we're making our way through this craziness with relative grace, right? And then when those downs come, it can sometimes feel like we're not ever going to get out of them. So today's goal is to be able to provide you again with tips, tools, tricks, things you can actually do. My hope always when I present is that you can walk away with something new, something that is small, doesn't take a ton of time or energy, but can help start to make small change in your life, small, productive, positive change. In these ups and downs too, remember, we're here to acknowledge and accept that these things are happening, that we are sometimes going to feel sad, sometimes feel angry, sometimes feel great and happy and joyful. We are going to be stressed. Sometimes we may not be. We are also going to be motivated, and sometimes we may not be. Your job is to know that those ups and downs are normal. It's a really, really hard thing to accept right now, especially when we are kind of used to, again, routine and structure. It's kind of been thrown out the window. So again, acknowledge, accept, and then find ways to move through these experiences so that we can make each day, each moment 1% better. And just quickly, I think I can see a raise of hands. Like if you felt this, use your little raise hand function. I want to see. Chances are you've all had these moments. And importantly, to know you're not alone in that. And that's part of the reason we wanted to do this webinar, so that we can create a conversation surrounding these things. All right, so riding the waves of mood. This is an interesting one. Feel the feelings. It's not so much something that you can do, but rather a way of shifting perspective, a way of looking at things differently. So there was an article in the Harvard Business Review, actually a coworker of mine, Dr. Kim O'Brien, who is a clinical social worker with sports medicine. She pointed it out to me and I thought it was wonderful. I've also seen it from some other friends and family who have sent it around. It is entitled "That Discomfort You're Feeling is Grief." And I put this up here because this quote in particular, I think really addresses this challenge of feeling feelings. And it says, your work is to feel your sadness and fear and anger, whether or not someone else is feeling something. Fighting it doesn't help because your body is producing the feeling. If we allow the feelings to happen, they'll happen in an orderly way and it empowers us. Then we're not victims. And again, I think this resonates really strongly right now. Culturally and socially, we have defined certain emotions as good or bad. And the bad ones we don't like to feel. We don't like to feel them and we want to fix them. We want to fix them fast. And sometimes in doing that, we actually create greater struggle. So again, not necessarily something to add to your toolbox per se, so much as a way to shift your perspective around feeling these things that don't feel so good. Create the space, feel them, process them, and then when you feel ready to make change, the things we talk about from here on out can help do that. And I thought this was great. Social media has been a really fascinating tool throughout all of this. We are certainly seeing a lot of really good things come from social media. And this one in particular stood out to me because a lot of what I've been hearing from clients is that there's sometimes this sense of guilt for those who are still healthy and are still able to be surrounded by family to feel they feel badly feeling okay. And so I really like this. And I think, again, it speaks to the feeling the feelings concept in that we can feel more than one thing at once. Sometimes it might be two not so great things. Sometimes it might be, again, feeling grateful and then also feeling disappointed about things that are being canceled. We can feel two discordant emotions at once. That can also create even more discomfort. But if you can, again, allow that space, feel those things, and then know how you can move forward when you're ready. And our next one for riding the wave of mood is starting with gratitude. So gratitude is great. Why it matters. This is something that can bring about feelings of happiness. It can encourage pro-social behavior, and it can also actually improve physical health. There's a lot of research on gratitude, lowering blood pressure, stress, all of that. So what I often do is I encourage my athletes to start their day with gratitude. Right now, I often do a lot of work with wins. So having my athletes recognize the good things that are happening. Right now, that can be a little challenging because they sometimes feel like not a lot is happening. And so the monotony of one day into the next, they're like, nothing changed. How do I find the win? And so we've shifted our focus a bit, really to the world of gratitude, where I have them wake up and I have them write down 3 things they're thankful for. Can be tiny, tiny things that really, in essence, aren't that tiny, can be really big things. It doesn't matter. I encourage them to write it down. A lot of my athletes, when they first start working with me, they're like, yeah, I thought about it. But we want them to write it down because writing it down helps give some permanency to it. It helps create a collection of things. And it also helps savor the moment. Those moments of gratitude, those things. I often give the example, I really love dogs. And when I see dogs, when I'm driving to work, they make me laugh. I probably look crazy in my car. But when I'm working on my own gratitude and I know that I want to write it down later, I'm able to hold on to that moment a bit more. And so that's where the pen to paper can be really, really helpful. However, cell phones are also the best and worst tool I have. Kids tend to be glued to them. I personally am sometimes glued to mine. So starting a note in your phone that's just list of gratitudes, keep running tabs. So then on the day, maybe when 3 is hard to find, go back to your list, review it. And another one, again, shout out to Kim O'Brien here. She talked about writing letters or emails of gratitude, which I thought was really, really cool, especially right now where the social distancing, it doesn't mean social disconnecting. So if we can find ways to connect with people, maybe even people we haven't talked to in some time, letters of gratitude can be a really wonderful avenue for that. Excuse me. All right. So now we move on to riding the waves of stress. This one is going to seem reasonably simple. 60 seconds of breath, right? Very, very common when I'm working with athletes and we're talking about performance anxiety, kind of creating ideal performance settings. They are very quick to tell me that when they are stressed, they don't breathe. Of course, we always joke, like, you're breathing to live, but are you breathing to thrive? Are you breathing to create, again, an ideal performance setting? Chances are usually they're not. I know I have some gymnasts on here right now. I was a gymnast when I was younger. I think I would see if I can make it through an entire bar routine without breathing. When we don't breathe, we get tense, shoulders up to ears, right? It's a lot harder to think clearly. It's a lot harder to move clearly. So with 60 seconds of breath, this is going to be your best tool, right? Your breath is with you at all times. It helps to slow things down physically and mentally. It creates space for you to reason. When we're feeling stressed, when our breath is getting shorter, things start to move really fast and we're not as able to kind of step back out of that moment, realize that we have the ability to take control of certain things and then actually initiate action. So 60 seconds of breath, it's going to be, again, best friend. 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out, 6 times. The idea too is that breathing and focusing on your breathing, really truly being present in what you're doing, allows you the opportunity to shift your focus to something productive. Usually when we're starting to feel that sense of stress, that building of anxiety, it's because things are starting to fly at us. Our brains are reeling, and we have a hard time of, again, backing out of that. So slow it down, take a moment, and give yourself something to think about instead of telling yourself what not to think about. Usually in those moments, we go to the stop worrying, stop being anxious, stop doing this, stop doing that. Stopping thinking is really, really hard, right? Really, really hard. We're human. And so if you can instead focus on your breath, count each second in and out 6 times. It's not magic, but it will, again, create space for you to move through that moment. Assess, reflect, repeat if you need to. Ideally, this is a great tool always. We don't necessarily want to wait until that moment of panic. What we want to do is be able to recognize when we're starting to go to that place, when we're starting to feel a little kind of freak out, and again, quiet it before it becomes that point of no return. So the more you do it, the better you'll get at it, and the more effective it will be as well. So then when you do really need it, you're able to call on that. And then we have the Tantrum Journal. For anyone who has heard me talk before, I talk about this one a lot. It's one of my favorites. So here, again, we have a lovely coworker. This is Mel. I had her be my demo for the photo. You can see on her paper, I am stressed, right? When we get stressed, again, thoughts are rolling and bouncing and flying and zipping through our minds. It's really hard to tie down any of those thoughts, to grab onto anything and create action out of it. I usually refer to like that feeling as this whirring, this kind of constant noise and motion. And sometimes there's so much noise and motion, we don't even know what we're stressed about anymore. The Tantrum Journal is a really wonderful place to be able to parse that out. So here, in this tiny picture of Mel, we can see center of the paper, I'm stressed. This version of a Tantrum Journal is more of a word splash. What's really, really fascinating is I've had athletes do this pre-competition, pre-finals, even when school's kind of picking up. and a word splash turns into something that is totally incomprehensible. The things that are going through their head are happening at such a rapid pace that they literally, it takes over the page. I'm stressed disappears into this kind of blob of black ink, which is kind of indicative of then how our heads probably feel in those moments. The tantrum journal is great. Again, pen to paper is wonderful, but if you have your phone, you can always do it in your phone. Once you get those thoughts out of your head, so rather than let them marinate, put them on the paper. Once they're on the paper, you have a couple options. One, metaphorically crumple that up, tear it up, and throw it away. It's not invalidating what you're feeling so much as saying that right now in that moment, that tangle web of thoughts is not helping you be productive. So throw it away, be done with it. Know that you can come back to it when you need to. The other option, and this is why I have our little guys here holding the puzzle pieces, is the tantrum journal can help you see what's in your control. A lot of times the thoughts that create anxiety are things that we can't necessarily do anything about. It's our what ifs. It's our anticipation of the future and what's to come. When you write that down on the paper, sometimes I'll have athletes who do a tantrum journal and they actually realize that not a single thing they're worrying about is in their control, which is both incredibly frustrating, but also can be a huge weight off of their shoulders. Because in that moment, they see, I can't change any of this right now. So giving my energy to it, worrying about it and stressing about it is not helping me. Then they hold on to that list. And maybe in a couple of days, something has changed. And so then they can take action on that controllable. I really like this tool. I find it incredibly helpful. It's sometimes referred to, you can do it in a couple different ways. I've heard from a social worker at the hospital, she refers to it as 3 minutes of thought. You can set a timer. You could do it with a buddy. You could do it morning, night, whenever. But I usually encourage when you're starting to feel like your wheels are spinning. And you aren't necessarily sure why or how to make it stop. Again, feel it. We don't need to make it stop, but this is a bit of action that can help move us in the right direction. All right. And now motivation. This has been a big one right now for my student athletes. They are really struggling with the fact that they are usually incredibly motivated. I have athletes who are waking up at 5 a.m. to go practice before they go to school. And then they're leaving school and they're going back to practice. So they are used to that grind, really kind of harnessing the grit, the mental toughness, all of these awesome things that we want our athletes to have. And now, while schedules are all sorts of wonky, that motivation has really shifted a bit. Again, some days they feel great. Some days they wake up, maybe on a day where it's sunny, they can go out for a run, they can get out on a bike, and then they come home and they're feeling ready to go. Some days it's just not there. So one of the things we have talked a lot about is how to organize your tasks in a functional, productive way. So again, raise of hands, how many people like schedules? I do. When I was in college, I used to schedule myself literally down to probably 5-minute increments. When I was eating, when I was walking to class, when I was going to rehearsal. I was a dancer. And what I'm finding right now is that sometimes those kind of stringent, like really regimented schedules can actually be a little challenging, because on the days when athletes and individuals aren't feeling that sense of motivation, that sense of drive, when they don't stick to the schedule, they really beat up on themselves. So something to consider is, instead of creating like a time interval schedule, create a skeleton schedule for yourself. And then within that, something you can do that I've been doing a lot with my athletes are these two things you see here in the picture. So the top left image, what I have athletes do is prioritize their tasks based on easy, medium, hard, and long term. That way they can see what's something that if they have like barely any motivation, if they have to get something done, start with an easy task. Start with an easy task so that they can check it off the list and feel accomplished in that. Similarly, if they don't like the easy, medium, hard, long term, what I will have them also do, or alternatively, is create a list of need to and want to tasks. Same sort of thing. On a day when the motivation's feeling exceptionally low, start with a want to. Start with something that will make you feel good, make you feel satisfied in your work, in what you've produced, if you've produced something, or even just getting outside. Outside is like also everyone's best friend right now, so hopefully this nice weather stays with us. The idea is that organizing tasks in this way and starting with a want to, starting with something easy. My goal is to help the athlete kind of catch the motivation wave. You see at the bottom of this slide that good breeds good. When we do something, when we feel good in that, we are going to want to do more of those things, which is why small tasks and feeling accomplished in completing those small tasks is going to be your best friend. Lots of best friends tonight going on, outside tasks, all of this. But it's true, we have to find these little things, these little kind of like gems that can help us, again, catch the motivation wave, recognize that what we're feeling is normal and valid, and how do we work through that. So this has been a really cool one. I started doing this actually even before COVID because again, I was having some athletes come to me feeling exceptionally overwhelmed. I've actually been using this analogy a lot today and in the last week. When we feel like there is just too much, we freeze. Not always, but a lot of times. It's the sense of there's too much to do. I don't even know where to start. And the analogy I've been giving is like the cat who hides under the bed, but its tail's sticking out. For the cat's there, the cat thinks it's hiding. If I can't see you, you can't see me. Similarly, with all of our tasks that might be lying in front of us, if I don't look at them, they're not there and I don't have to deal with it. It's avoidance, right? It's a protective mechanism. So come out from under the bed, find the one task that you feel you can accomplish in that moment. I highlight at the top of this, start by doing just one thing. One thing that's super easy, one thing that will make you feel good, just something. Initiate that action so that then ideally we can maintain that action moving forward. All right, and our second one for motivation here, we have setting goals. So for anyone who tuned into my Instagram Live a couple weeks ago, we did talk a little bit about goals. Any of my athletes who are on here right now know I'm all about the goals, especially right now. It's pretty common that we set goals and then we don't necessarily have our plan of action, right? So it's pretty easy for those goals to feel unattainable, or for those goals to kind of disappear into the abyss of all of the craziness we're dealing with. So the idea behind effective goal setting, I have here a SMART goal worksheet I use with athletes. I wouldn't be surprised for any student athletes logged on right now, you've likely seen this. Oftentimes I hear that this is used in health classes, which is awesome. Any non-current student athletes, you may be familiar with this. This is just one way to set effective goals and to create your roadmap to success. The idea is we want the goal, but more so we want the plan of action. What steps are you going to take to actually achieve those goals? Moreover, we want to do this regularly. Going back to the last slide, talking about feeling satisfied in your accomplishments. If we set goals and we achieve them, we feel good. Again, then we want to do more of that. Good breeds good. Said that in the Instagram Live too. That's a new favorite one. So setting goals regularly, focusing on the process, right? So we are often geared to look towards the end result, the outcome. I always give the example in a workshop with a team. If I ask, what's your goal in today's game? It's to win, right? Winning isn't necessarily controllable. Soccer team could go out and play the best game of their entire life. And the other team could too. And the other team could come out on top, right? So winning is not necessarily controllable, but what is? Effort, focus, technical pieces to the game, all of that. that process is the important piece. My goal is to help individuals feel empowered to recognize change and progress. Right now, we're all kind of giving a lot without necessarily knowing what the result is. So for instance, athletes are training day in, day out. They're going for runs. Many of them who have never run before are starting to run to stay in, keep up their stamina and cardiovascular fitness. They're doing workouts with teams. They're doing strength training on their own. They're out in the backyard practicing what they can. They're giving, 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 and yet they aren't seeing all of that work feed into the end result, feed into their sport. So goals help them create that feedback, create that satisfaction that their work is paying off and that it's worth continuing to do. All right. And then just to conclude, a couple other things to think about in regards to riding this wave. Create intentional breaks for yourself. So I spoke very early on to the fact that like student athletes, when they're students, they're walking between classes, right? So that's their norm. Even if it's 4 minutes, it's 4 minutes that's happening probably 5-6 times a day, if not more. So when they tell me that they're sitting down and trying to work for 4 hours straight, my first thought is, what are you doing to create breaks? Breaks that actually serve purpose. So not necessarily hopping on a phone and going on social media, but like getting up, walking to get a glass of water. Then we get some movement and we get some hydration, double duty. Things like walking downstairs or outside the living room or wherever they're doing work, stand on the front step, get some sun. I had my mom laughing today. I said, I'm like a plant. I just need sun, food, and water, and I feel so much better. So use those breaks and use them with purpose. Don't take a break and then be like, what did I just do for 20 minutes, right? That's often kind of the social media, phone, electronic trap that I'm seeing. And also we need to create space away from screens. Zoom fatigue is apparently a thing. So when we're constantly staring at a screen, we need to have some time away from that. Another thing, kind of along the line of gratitude, do something for someone else. Make someone else feel good, right? That makes us feel good. I have some athletes, again, depending on what kind of family structure is surrounding COVID, who are painting rocks with inspirational quotes and doing deliveries to friends. They feel good doing it, and the friend getting it feels awesome. It's a nice surprise. Get outside. Again, can't say that enough. Me as plant Kelsey realized the other day that I hadn't even really looked outside in 2 days and I wasn't feeling super great. Get outside, move. Now is time for free play. I know our trainers are so excited that athletes are having a little time away from structured sport, to be able to play soccer in the backyard with a sibling, to go out front and shoot some hoops, to set up the hockey net, to dance around in the basement with their siblings before they eat dinner. All of these things are great. And if they can be done outside, awesome. We love that. And then just overall move your brain, challenge yourself in new ways. Recognize that productivity doesn't have to fit in a box. Again, we're used to this kind of socially and culturally defined version of what it means to be productive. And right now that has to shift. I had an athlete say to me the other day that she wasn't being productive because she wasn't going to school. She wasn't able to kind of identify the solid points, the things she'd achieved by the end of the day. And yet she told me that she's having time to wake up and journal and reflect. She's having time to do some meditation. That's productive. That's awesome. I mean, of course, I'm a little biased to it because it very much speaks to the mental game, but that's productivity. It's just a different kind of productivity. So being adaptable, being able to know, even with goals, modify, change. If something doesn't work out, it doesn't mean you failed it. It means that the game plan wasn't there and we have to reassess. So keeping all of those things in mind will help you navigate this. If you think it's hard, if you think what we're dealing with right now is challenging and you're struggling, you are not alone. It is hard. This is not easy. This is not meant to be, here are the 4 things to do that will make this totally fine. again, feeling the feelings, know that it doesn't necessarily feel fine, and it's not fun, and it's not ideal. But what steps can you take to make yourself feel that sense of 1% better, to know how to pull yourself out when you're not feeling motivated, when you're feeling just kind of blah and you need to be a plant and go outside and get some sun. All right. So thank you all for sticking with me. I know I saw some questions come up. So let me exit my screen here. We'll bring Miss Carpenito back on the line. There she is. Awesome.
Hello, everybody.
All right. So do we have any questions?
So I'm just going to allow everybody to, because everybody was very interactive with the hand raising, which I love. So I'm going to allow everybody to, if they have any questions, just continue to ask some questions here. And Kelsey, like while they're doing that, I actually had a question for you that maybe you can talk a little bit about. But we talked a little bit of a plug here. Kelsey does a psych up session. She does one for clients, but she also does one for staff. And during one of our staff psych ups, we talked a little bit about guilt, which you touched on a little bit. But we talked about how on social media, there's like, if you don't get something done with all of this time you have now, then you're wasting your time or you're not focused or something like that. Would you be able to maybe expand on that and maybe why we feel like that or what we can do about it?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's actually a really wonderful article out by a trauma psychologist I came across actually via Facebook, which is funny, again, looking at kind of the pros and cons of what social media outlets are producing right now. And the article talks about the fact that we're hearing and we're seeing this motivational push coming from a lot of different resources. Do this exercise, here's this workout, you should be doing this, join us here. Like just kind of this continuous feed of like the things we should be doing now that we have time. And then there's also, even to go a step further, this, like you said, Sarah, belief that if you aren't doing them, it's not that you didn't have the time before, it's that you didn't have the discipline. And that's where it becomes a little harmful, because it's important to remember that while yes, we may have more time, we are also, as this trauma psychologist explains, we're also experiencing a collective trauma, that right now things are not normal. There is a lot of loss, ranging on this huge spectrum. And so to feel guilty that, again, you're not being productive in the way you should be. I always say to my athletes, should is a danger zone word. Should and need. The minute those things come into your vocabulary, well, yes, we do sometimes have need to tasks and should tasks, like I identified in kind of categorizing. We got to get some stuff done, right? There's always going to be the should, but knowing who says should, why should we? Is it something you want, or is it something that you're seeing, from outside sources, and who's saying that that's the right thing to be doing? So again, it's balance. It's, if you want to learn something new, do it because you want to. Don't do it because you feel like you have to. And I know we talk, again, with the staff psych up, we, in healthcare, there's a drive. People, like, I am very lucky to work with coworkers who love what they do and want to give everything they can. And right now, sometimes, again, that productivity, that giving is just going to be a little bit different.
For sure. Absolutely. And so we have a question here from Elizabeth Tucker, and it's, she asks, what's the best way to identify progress, not with a T, when I can't be seeing it in practice every day?
It's a really good question. It's one I'm getting a lot. So again, athletes are used to giving the work and then seeing the results. One thing I encourage for most of my athletes, especially right now, and this is where I will say, because they do have a little more time, I have them keep training journals. So in those training journals, they may see that a workout they did 2 weeks ago that was really, really challenging is now not quite as challenging, or they were able to get through it without taking as many breaks. So by tracking that progress, literally again, pen to paper, in their phones, something like that, they have proof. They can go back and say, what is different? Now, again, kind of speaking to like, what do we define as change or progress? Elizabeth, in answer to your question, it's not going to be huge. It's not necessarily going to be that I did these things and now I am capable of this, maybe a skill or something you couldn't do before. But if you can see the change day to day, week to week, the idea is that when normalcy does kind of return, and I spoke to this too a couple weeks ago on the Instagram Live, we're narrowing that performance gap. Doesn't mean that when you go back to sport, it's not going to be hard. It's not going to be challenging, but ideally that preparedness and that dedication you've had in the gritty, nitty gritty work will pay off. Awesome question.
Definitely a great question that I'm sure everybody can relate to. Sorry, I have a question here. Hang on. So another good question here is when you are making maybe your new schedule, do you schedule your downtime?
You know what? It's not necessarily a bad idea. Again, I like the idea of a skeleton schedule is kind of what I've been calling it, so that you have kind of a general outline of what the day will look like, but then you have wiggle room in there. Because what I was seeing, and I think I alluded to this when I was talking about it in the presentation, when it's interval scheduling, if an athlete or even a human, I know I feel this way, if I don't stick to that schedule, then I feel like I failed. I feel like I'm falling behind. And then I might actually jump to like that avoidance place of like, now there's too much, and so I'm just not even going to tackle it. Instead of saying, okay, this is when I had this chunk of time to do X thing. And, I gave myself a little more room in this space, so we're going to extend it a little bit. And in doing so, scheduling in those breaks, that free time is really helpful. When normal life is happening, I actually will have athletes create free time schedules. So rather than we usually do the interval scheduling for what we have to do, I have them create schedules for when they have free time. And a little shout out to my mom. When I was younger, she used to tell me 20 minutes can be a lot. And of course, I, a stubborn dancer, really busy schedule, is like 20 minutes is nothing. I can't get anything done then. And it wasn't until I went to college and I was literally gone from my room for 12 to 14 hours a day that I realized 20 minutes was gold. So learning how to build that in is really great. And it's a good reminder. Set alarms. Have athletes here, have mom or dad come up, quick knock on the door. Hey there, you've been working for about an hour and a half. Why don't you come downstairs and grab some water? Those are not bad things to intentionally build into the schedule so we don't get stuck in this like zone of what may be productive or not.
Definitely. Another question here. Do you recommend creating quote unquote accountability communities, whether it be with a group of friends or within a team to help reach personal goals? If so,
oh, okay.
I know. We can come back to it and separate them.
No, it's great.
If so, how would you recommend we track or hold each other accountable, like a Google Sheet or weekly Zoom calls, etc.?
Interesting. Okay. So I really, really love the idea of accountability buddies. So say within a team, you assign like partnerships or, like triplet groups or whatever, where people are checking in. I think right now that's a huge challenge for coaches, right? So where their athletes aren't with them, they don't know what's happening as much. It's like a very long, giant off season. And while I do think Excel sheets can be really, really helpful, I think it's important that the culture of the team speaks to that, right? So there can be, again, if we acknowledge the fact that like an athlete may have an off week. When this all started, I would have some athletes who just seemed off. And again, my immediate go-to is what can we do to create that productivity for you? And then the more it was happening, I was like, you know what? This is your week. Feel the lack of productivity this week. Be okay with that. Let's reset next week. And so when you have something like an Excel sheet, I think so long as coaches understand that there are going to be waves that the motivation isn't going to be what they're used to seeing necessarily like during season or while students are in, again, normal life. I think then that can be great, but I think maybe right now a more effective tool so that there's less feelings of guilt, right? Like athletes don't like to not be productive. They're not used to that, speaking generally. So with the buddy system, there's a little less public accountability, which, you know, I think either direction can be helpful so long, again, as those who are kind of creating the accountability, like teams or whatever, are understanding of the unique circumstances that we're in.
And not to judge each other if maybe one of us is having an off day or off week. Yeah.
And even to support each other. So say there is an Excel sheet, right? And a teammate notices that someone who's usually on top of their game, logging their stuff, isn't doing that, check in. Hey, like, so there's a way that something like that can be really cool, and can be incredibly supportive. And if we can create that kind of culture right now, again, a little bit of a silver lining, if that can carry into, you know, when we get back to normal life, that's certainly a plus.
Definitely. So does anybody have any more questions for Kelsey? I think we're kind of winding down a little bit, but if you have any more questions, please just take the next minute or so and shoot them our way, and we're happy to answer them for you.
Yeah, and what I can do, I'm not sure if I actually went to this last slide, so let me pop up my information so you all have that. So this is me. The number there is the number directly to the McKaylee Center. So again, our services, we are all virtual. Our physical trainers are there and ready to help you and support you. I am there doing classes, doing one-on-ones. So please feel free to reach out. We want to be here to help you guys and support you both mentally and physically during all of this.
We did have a question pop up, Kels.
Awesome.
Do you think it's important to revisit past successes as an individual or team in order to either re-energize or continue to push through the process to achieve a goal?
100%. I'm wondering if that's coming from a client of mine. I know that I am all about that. So one of the greatest predictors of future success, whether it's tomorrow or 4 months down the road, is past success. So I love that word re-energize. Go back, see how the work you've done before has paid off. You know, those successes they just feel good, right? So like, say you're on a team and you have a video of the game you won state or whatever. I've been watching Friday Night Lights, so that's in my language. Like, you know, like you win state and you're super stoked. So watch that video, feel that excitement. That's an awesome way to jump back on kind of the motivation waves. Know that like that win or that success didn't just happen. Like that was you putting in the time and the work. And that may do exactly what this individual just asked, is re-energize and kind of give you that drive to start setting those goals again, start holding yourself accountable again. Knowing that the success may be a bit down the road. But if you can I mentioned the word savor before, if you can savor that feeling, it's going to be really helpful again in kind of keeping the action present, and knowing that on the days when you don't feel like having any sort of productivity, it can come back. That's
Definitely.
awesome. I like that.
Definitely. These were great questions.
Oh, this is awesome.
I think we might be, we got another one. This was great, Kelsey, thanks. Will we be able to share this video?
That is a very good question. So this is new for us. So please thank you. Also applause to my awesome, again, fabulous, wonderful coworker for taking her Monday night to do this with me. We're kind of working out the kinks, so I am not sure about that yet. I apologize. Feel free to email me directly. I might have a little more information within the next day or so in terms of how we're going to proceed doing these webinars. Because again, this is hopefully just one of many. So not a definitive answer, but feel free to reach out and I can keep you posted as we move forward.
But one we can definitely look into for sure.
Yeah.
And then this is just a comment from Sarah. Thank you, Kelsey. So informative and helpful to see what my student athletes are going through.
Awesome. That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes. So I think with that, we might be ready to close up here.
Awesome. Thank you all for joining. I really, really appreciate it. I hope you found this helpful. Any questions you weren't comfortable asking through the forum, please feel free again to email me directly, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. I see a message too now that I'm out of this screen. Wishing you all, it's another thank you, of course. Wishing you all a healthy time in quarantine, mentally and physically. And again, please know the McKaylee Center is here to support you in whatever way we can. Have a great night, everyone. Bye-bye.